gentlemen, welcome to this edition of PWCI. This week, I am the Mad Conservative Crime Fighter. It is the annual Year in Review edition of the program where we count down the top 10 news stories of the St. Louis wrestling community for the year 2019. To make the list, obviously the story would have to occur in downstate Illinois or Missouri, or involve a major figure of the St. Louis wrestling scene, or the impact of the story has a major effect on the St. Louis wrestling scene. We're always tight for time, so let's get started.
But first, we have a few notable mentions that did not make the top 10. In the first ever recorded instance that we are even aware of happening in this area, Trent Daniels of Cape Championship Wrestling was arrested following his match against Lil Bit Marty Gras as he used brass knuckles against her to win the match, only to be disqualified by GM Jeff Odell and had a chuffy police officer arrest him on the spot for having them. While Illinois outlawed them back in 2008, Missouri only recently outlawed them in 2017. Missouri law is said to be stricter than Illinois with higher penalties. Not one wrestler in Illinois has been arrested for using them for the 11 years they've been outlawed. The classic KPLR Channel 11 studio on York Street behind the Chase Park Plaza, in which NWA Missouri St. Louis taped episodes of Wrestling at the Chase, was demolished to make way for the construction of the AC Hotel. Plans for a hotel were announced in November of 2017. The Clareson Ballroom is the last remaining classic St. Louis wrestling venue still standing. 3 promotions closed their doors in the year 2019. Central Illinois Pro Wrestling, which ran out of Kincaid, struggled heavily to break above 50 fans an event, closed their doors. Pro Wrestling Championship Series also ended operations as the owners believed the concept had run its course. Excitement Wrestling Revolution, which ran its first show on December 28th, closed its doors after sustaining huge losses from its first event, which only drew 100 people. Number 10. Southern Illinois wrestler undergoes a sex change. Rock star Cole James shocked many after announcing in October in a lengthy Facebook post that he took a sabbatical from wrestling back in March after going non-stop for 11 years due to the wear and tear of all the ring wars, and reevaluate his life after just turning 30, stating that he thought something was wrong at age 4. He would pray to God to magically make him a girl. Once reaching adulthood, James buried all those feelings, put on a tough face, and pretended to be someone else to the point he was fooled into believing that was the real Cole James. He then proceeded to begin hormone replacement therapy in preparation of a sex change operation. James then announced in October that he began living life as a female full-time and will be known in the ring by the name Nikki Driftwood. Driftwood, post-transition, re-debuted at Strictly Insane Pro Wrestling in December. While not the first to do this, Nyla Rose overnight became the first nationally known transgendered wrestler, signing with All Elite Wrestling. 2019 marked the year that transgenderism was heavily pushed for mainstreaming by activists, news media, and Hollywood elites. Number 9. Mustafa Ali's quest to break Muslim stereotyping in wrestling. The Central Illinois Pro Wrestling Hall of Famer, who signed with WWE in 2016 and stood tall as Dreamwave Wrestling's last heavyweight champion on its final show, made a decision after an encounter with a 6-year-old boy in Chicago who put up his fist to fight him, and all he could see was hate. After portraying the villain for so long as an evil prince from Saudi Arabia, he thought he was teaching him how to hate and felt disgusted with himself. After many years of Middle Eastern characters portrayed as villains, it was time to show Muslims in wrestling can be heroes to everyone. As a member of the SmackDown roster, as an Indian Pakistani wrestler, he has made it his goal to break down the barriers that have been set for athletes coming from his cultural background, not just in WWE, but also in media, movies, and everywhere. All over the world, people are welcoming those with different sexual orientations. Ali wants the same to be extended to religion and culture. It is working, as at a Paris, France event, he was heavily booed when making his entrance, but won the crowd over by the end of the match. Ali, of course, despite playing the villain on the local scene, was still loved by many. Ali made a surprise appearance at Dreamwave's reunion event in October and also donated his crown jewel earnings to the charity water organization. Number 8, deception over ring rental kills RWF event. In an act of vigilantism, Rebellious Wrestling Federation was forced to cancel their comeback event in Pontiac, Illinois on June 1st after arrangement for ring rental and booking was not lived up to. In the days and weeks leading up to the event, talent that were booked suddenly pulled out, giving varying reasons for doing so. Promoter Sean Hubbard went on his Wrestling Authority radio show and named a laundry list of people who had a motive to sabotage it. The fears were real, as Hubbard was sent a picture of the wreck the day of the show, which was determined to be a Brew City wrestling truck from Wisconsin a year ago. A large number of people who have extreme nuclear heat going back as far as 10 years with Hubbard immediately accused him of making up the entire story to get out of running the event and running a scam with over-the-top claims of what he was doing with the ticket money. Because of past problems he has had running events and is viewed as an habitual pathological liar, the charges were considered believable. In a transcript of communications obtained by the St. Louis Wrestling Community, arrangements and booking were set up by Robert Ego Anthony using Twitter with a lowball ring rental offer. Following the crash claim, Anthony blocked Hubbard. While Hubbard's fiercest enemies may believe he has no recourse in recovering financial losses, legal precedents in recent years have been set where electronic communications are just as legally binding as a signed paper contract. Hubbard, in an hour-long interview that aired on this program in November, promises a lawsuit against Robert Anthony sometime this year. He also admitted he still owes refunds to some individuals, giving an estimate amount. Number 7, Jaden Roller accused of explicit conversation with underage fan. In late February, a wrestling manager out of Iowa who goes by the name of Midnight Guthrie posted screenshots of alleged text messages between Roller and an underage special ed student that was classified as explicit. Guthrie's wife, who worked at the school the girl attended, caught wind of it from a teacher's aide and shared what was learned. Promoters at 3XW investigated and confronted Roller, who denied the charges. When news broke, several promotions canceled Roller. World League Wrestling swiftly responded by changing a scheduled tactile match at Night Champions 4, removing him and putting in his tag team partner Austin Cravens in a singles match against Gil Rogers. The incident was reported to authorities in Iowa. However, the investigation has gone nowhere and no charges have been filed. Roller, a couple of months later, announced he was returning to the ring, much to the chagrin of Guthrie and others. He also announced he would pursue legal action against Guthrie and 3XW for slander and defamation in falsifying information regarding involvement of a minor. The daughter of Road Warrior Animal, Jessica Latronitis, who is engaged to Roller, blasted 3XW for sharing the minor's information with parties not involved in a Facebook group chat, and Guthrie in particular, questioning if the accusations against Roller were true. Why didn't he call the police instead of blast it on social media? Close friends of Guthrie's says he has no reason to make up a story like this. Roller made his return to Mid-Missouri Wrestling Alliance in May and Dynamo Pro Wrestling days later. He is also back on the WLW roster. Number 6, guilty pleas from Straight and Gamache. In two separate cases we've been following since 2017. First, Marshall Straight, who wrestled in the Southern Illinois wrestling scene as Mike Slade, retiring from active competition in 2012, agreed to a plea deal where he pled guilty to a single charge of first-degree child sodomy with a minor under 14, and 5 other similar charges were dismissed. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. He was arrested in August of that year. Second, in a case where wrestling news including a Batista bomb caused the death of a toddler that drew a strong rebuke from WWE, Richard Camachi Jr. ended up pleading guilty to 2 felony counts of child abuse, foregoing a jury trial that was set to start in October. A jury was selected but not sworn in after the change of plea. Lawyers for Camachi made a motion for a mental exam before sentencing, but the judge ruled against it. On December 27th, Gamache was sentenced on 2 counts to life in prison plus 10 years. Earlier in 2019, the biological father, who had been in a long custody battle with the mother, Cheyenne Cook, sued Gamache and his parents for wrongful death and reached a settlement.
We We are halfway through our countdown of our annual year in review show. We got 5 more stories to go. But first, we take a look at this weekend's pro wrestling events happening in downstate Illinois and Missouri.
Newly inducted into the St. Louis Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame class of 2019 are Bob Orton Sr., grandfather of Randy Orton, and women's legend Debbie Combs. Her mother, Cora Combs, was inducted into the new independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame, along with the Giant Assassin, Big Daddy, Rob Phillips, Danny Boy, and Keith Smith. The Mississippi Madman, who announced his retirement, was inducted into the Central Illinois Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. And now we resume our countdown of the top 10 news stories of the St. Louis wrestling community for the year 2019. Number 5, The Shield make their farewell in Illinois as Moxley jumps to AEW, with Dean Ambrose making the declaration not to renew his WWE contract after an 8-year run with the company. When it expired in April, The Shield reunited as a trio for a final series of matches. Jon Moxley had been unhappy with the creative direction of his character and constantly arguing with Vince McMahon over the promos he had him say, making him physically ill. The last straw was a promo where his character would get inoculated for various diseases out of fear of catching a virus from the fans that Moxley felt damaged his persona to the point of being unrepairable. The final matches were held in St. Louis, Springfield, and Moline, the latter televised as a WWE Network special, The Shield's final chapter. They faced off against Baron Corbin, Bobby Lashley, and Jinder Mahal in St. Louis, Drew McIntyre in Springfield and Moline, winning all 3. On May the 1st, Ambrose announced he was back to being Jon Moxley and made his debut for All Elite Wrestling on the Double or Nothing pay-per-view in Las Vegas, confronting Chris Jericho. In an act of bitter pettiness, WWE edited out Ambrose's name from The Shield's debut video. Number 4, Shiloh Greaves accused of tampering with supermarket products. Publicity from a bizarre social media fad came back to unexpectedly bite a wrestler from California who makes regular trips to the Midwest. It all started with a teenager from Houston, Texas in July posting a video where she picked up and licked a container of ice cream, then put it back on the shelf, laughing about it. Soon others were licking and spitting into other kinds of products in stores before putting the items back for other customers to purchase. One such incident led to charges of unlawful posting of criminal activity for notoriety and publicity and criminal mischief for allegedly tampering with property. Shiloh Greaves, before this became a thing, posted a wrestling promo on an upcoming New Wave Pro match against Big T Thomas Moore back in January. The promo started getting the wrong kind of attention after getting shared on Reddit, where Greaves spit in a container of Arizona tea as a metaphor for spitting on Thomas More's legacy. This led to a public uproar and national media attention in which some angry individuals resorted to doxing his home address. Greaves explained in an interview about the promo that the tea was purchased and properly disposed unconsumed. No charges were filed, and Greaves was cleared of any wrongdoing. Number 3, Molly's reckless tweeting as Elgin signs with Impact Wrestling. In the saga that seems to have no end, and we've covered just about all developments on our news episodes all year long, Molly Woodward Chapman continued to demonstrate why she needs banned from all social media and wrestling events. Chapman started a year where her order of protection lawsuit was thrown out. The suit claimed Elgin gave marching orders to a number of parties, including Variety magazine, to harass her on Twitter. Meanwhile, Chapman no-showed multiple depositions in Elgin's lawsuit against her, but in May finally secured pro bono attorney Brendan Roediger, who is an associate professor at St. Louis University School of Law. In October, Roediger filed a motion to have Elgin's lawsuit thrown out on a technicality, as Elgin made the mistake of posting a screenshot of his negotiations with him on settlement, which is a foul. However, the suit was set to move forward as a jury trial was scheduled for late March. Meanwhile, she called out various personalities in wrestling over sexual abusers and nude photo leakers. However, it was discovered that Molly herself kept a Google Drive folder full of nude photos of wrestlers to use as blackmail to keep them from speaking out about her conduct. Late in the year, she had her pro bono lawsuits send Melinda Blue, who took over the investigation of Mo for Drama Llama of Truth, a cease and desist order served via Twitter that was publicly slammed as crude and unenforceable. She also multiple times solicited donations for medical procedures where she had every reproductive organ removed, some organs multiple times, claiming it was necessary to solve her health problems. But it also would aid her career as a sex worker without fear of getting pregnant from her reckless behavior. It was also discovered Molly had underwent shock treatment to deal with severe bipolar disorder at age 21 that was covered in a 2014 U.S. News and World Report article. Maybe she should have been given a diagnosis of Munchausen syndrome, a fictitious disorder where those affected feign disease, illness, or psychological trauma to draw attention, sympathy, or reassurance to themselves. My mocking of the ridiculous medical declarations, which remind me of the Saturday Night Live character Colette Reardon, finally got me on the radar after 2 years of covering the case. However, in a late-breaking development, a tweet was posted on both her and Elgin's Twitter accounts stating the parties wish to put this matter behind them. Ms. Chapman does not assert that Mr. Elgin assaulted or physically harmed her in any way. Mr. Elgin understands the importance of ensuring that the wrestling community is a safe and welcoming space. There will be no further comment. However, Molly followed that up with, if you're taking this as some sort of exoneration on his behalf, you're only seeing what you've always wanted to see. I never lied. I never hurt any career. That's what was decided. Now go away. The comment saying she never hurt any career is a blatant lie. We are waiting on details and will be covering what went down last Friday on a future news edition of PWCI. As for Michael Elgin, he has since signed with Impact Wrestling in April. His local wrestling project, Pro Wrestling Force, has gone dormant or closed after just 2 events, the last one being in February. Number 2, ACH quits pro wrestling over t-shirt design. In one of the most stunning self-destructions ever witnessed in the wrestling scene, Albert Christian Hardy, known in the independents as ACH and referred to as Jordan Miles in NXT, melted down in a social media tirade over the design of a t-shirt with his ring name on it. The Texas native, who left his footprint in the Midwest as a former NWA Central States champ, AEW heavyweight and heritage title holder, as well as the winner of the 2013 Pro Wrestling Epic 8 tournament, wrestled for Ring of Honor and toured in Japan before signing with WWE last February to the NXT brand. ACH proceeded to win the NXT Breakout Tournament and challenged Adam Cole for his title, coming up short in the match. Things went way south in October as he took to Twitter to denounce the design of his t-shirt with a red smile and letters of his name that looked like teeth. This was seen as racially insensitive, as on a black shirt, it resembled a character used in minstrel shows and blackface performances. WWE stated he approved the design, but ACH disputed communications with Triple H and Creative Services Coordinator Baker London, claiming they lied to him. London, who came up with the design, had only been in the position a couple months. While initially gaining support for his grievance, ACH lost much of it when he attempted to pull uninvolved African American wrestlers into the situation and slammed Jay Lethal, of whom he holds a grudge from a past altercation at a hotel. After issuing an ultimatum, ACH announced he quit WWE in an F-bomb-filled rant and denounced Jordan Miles as a slave name, though he came up with it himself as a concatenation between Chicago Bulls legend Michael Jordan and Spider-Man incarnation Miles Morales. Fans compared his conduct to that of Jesse Smollett and didn't care if he quit WWE. After being fired from WWE, he returned to the independent circuit, signing with Major League Wrestling and scheduled matches in the Midwest, but quit pro wrestling entirely on his birthday, venting his hate for know-it-all fans and snakes in the industry. Concern has been raised about his mental health being a factor in his recent behavior, as ACH so much has admitted dealing with anxiety, depression, and occasional mood swings. Here's hoping that he gets the help that he needs to turn things around, where he does not go where others broken from their WWE tenures had gone.
It is now that time of the program where we remember some of the names and the faces of Warriors of the Ring we have lost in the year 2019. Topping off the list of people we have lost this year is our number one story for the year 2019.
Number 1, the death of Handsome Harley Race, the 8-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion with multiple reigns as Central States and Missouri Champion, among other titles, and the patriarch of World League Wrestling, passes away after battling lung cancer at the age of 76. Born in Quitman, Missouri in 1943, the toughest man of his generation, Harley's wrestling career almost ended before it truly began. Harley suffered major injuries from a severe car crash that killed his pregnant first wife a month after marriage. Doctors told him he'd never walk again, much less wrestle, but were talked out of amputating one of his legs. Race, proving to be quite the opposite of his hometown's name, underwent months of grueling physical therapy to make a full recovery and returned to the ring, working for the Funk family in Texas in 1964. After a run in the AWA with Larry the Axe Hennig as tag team champions, he went to the NWA to work for Sam Muchnick and Bob Geigel in Missouri, winning the Central States title in 1968, the Missouri title in 1972, and his first world title in Kansas City, beating Dory Funk Jr. in 1973. He would be one of the cornerstones of Wrestling at the Chase in a span of 2 decades, before having a 3-year run in WWE, earning the nickname of King by winning the King of the Ring tournaments at house shows. Race would retire from wrestling in 1990 following a shoulder injury and turned to managing, leading such men as Lex Luger and Big Van Vader to world titles until 1995, when another car crash induced hip replacement surgery. In 1999, Harley opened World League Wrestling in Eldon, Missouri, and Race Wrestling Academy soon after, to train and develop the next generation of wrestlers with yearly training camps in conjunction with Pro Wrestling Noah. It was relocated to its current home in Troy, Missouri in 2014. In his final years, Harley battled a number of complications, losing mobility in 2017 after a fall broke both his legs. Last March, Ric Flair, who ended his final world title reign at Starrcade 1983, revealed Race was battling lung cancer. A week later, Race would accompany his son Leland to the ring at WLW Night of Champions 4, who faced the NWA World Champion Nick Aldis in Moscow Mills. In July, Harley would be hospitalized en route to a fan signing in Atlanta before WWE paid for a medical flight back to St. Louis, where he died on August the 1st. The last real world's champion was 76, leaving behind an unmatched wrestling legacy.
That'll do it for this year's edition of PWCI This Week. In the year 2019 comes to the close, and now we're entering the 2020s. Support your local professional wrestling independent event wherever they're holding the show. Until next time, I am the Mad Conservative Crime Fighter. Be sure to follow us